This is Alabama Politics with Steve Flowers, an in-depth interview with Alabama's top political newsmakers. Now, from the studios of Troy University, here is Steve Flowers.
I'm Steve Flowers, and welcome to Alabama Politics. Folks, we're very fortunate tonight to have as our guests two legendary Alabamians who've had press conferences here in Montgomery today, and we're proud to have them on our show. Richard Scrushy, the former CEO and founder of Health South Corporation, and Tommy Gallion, one of the most legendary, colorful political lawyers in the state's history. His daddy was McDonald Gallion, was a longtime Attorney General, and they're a team, and they've got some revelations to share with us today, and we thank them for taking time to be with us on our show, Alabama Politics. Let's begin with you, Tom, if you don't mind, and tell us why you and Richard are here today, and we all been having a press conference in Montgomery, and you don't mind Tommy sort of
No, I've been introducing him all day.
Okay, let's go ahead.
Steve, as you know, I wrote a book, and as I got to the certain part of it, and I had been told by Winton Blunt, and I filed a sworn affidavit that they were going to, that Bob Riley was coming back to Montgomery, and they were getting Mark Fuller and the lower.
Now, Riley was in Congress at this time?
In Congress, and he was running
the
against
old
Sigmund
3rd District,
in 03, And
he was going to come on run for governor.
Yeah, and so Blunt wanted me to come over to his house and meet with Karl Rove, and I said, well, I don't particularly like Karl Rove, and what are you going to do? Oh, we got him. We're going to get Mark Fuller as the judge, and we're going to get Laura Canary, Bill Canary's going to marry her, and we're going to take Sigmund down. I said, when have you lost your mind?
That's Governor Don Sigmund. Don was governor at the time.
He was governor running for re-election. And anyway, and I filed a sworn affidavit before all this came up. Anyway, long story short, I called Richard because I couldn't find out what in the heck Richard had done. Richard Scrushy. Hell, he'd been a Republican as far as I knew, or certainly an independent. And what did he have to do with Sigmund? Well, after 3 years of plodding, and about a year ago, we put together the conundrum, the puzzle, and it all fit. They wanted to use Richard Scrushy to get Don Sigmund. They couldn't find any other thing. They had tried to go after Richard in Birmingham and Health South, which fell miserably. The 36 counts, he was found not guilty on all of them. So anyway, back to this, when all of a sudden I read that Richard Scrushy, when I remember in the middle of the election they indicted Don Sigmund, and I said, oh God, this is pathetic.
So the scenario that Winton Blunt had
told me, I filed a sworn affidavit.
Karl Rove was involved with it too.
Oh, Karl Rove, yeah, that dirtbag's involved in everything. But anyway, I shouldn't, that's not a Christian thing to say, but I consider, it's like I told somebody I'd rather go snorkeling in a septic tank than be with Karl Rove. But anyway, so I called Richard. I ran him down. Never had met him, although our firm in Birmingham had
represented him.
Yeah, for a long time. And I called him. I said, Richard, I found out some information, and I started talking to him. He said, I'm driving down from Houston. Of course, they took everything Richard had. His wife took the children's toys. They took everything you could imagine, including his wife's undergarments. I mean, kind of like Trump, you know. And they terrorized the house. So anyway, I told him some of the things I had uncovered, and he got in his car and drove all the way from Houston because they had taken all his money and property illegally. I may add, so horribly illegal that I'm hoping that when this is over, a lot of them will go to the slammer, but who knows. So anyway, Richard came down, and I started talking to him, and we became friends. And what we uncovered, Steve, is going to shock not only Alabama, but the nation. It's the single, and I practiced law, as you know, 52 years, took on the NCAA and all sort of stuff.
That's right.
And was raised by investigators. I have never seen anything this diabolical and evil in my whole life. They destroyed this man who had built 2 Fortune 500 companies, or maybe 3, I don't know, Richard, but it's so involved. I'm going to let Richard tell you the story, but it's so evil. It's not Republican or Democrat, it's pure evil. And the people that wanted to get rid of Scrushy, you got to remember, trace back where Bob Riley's son-in-law was a partner. They ended up representing Health South / Encompass. And what they've done to this man, I promise you that Edmond Dumont in the Count of Monte Cristo didn't have anything this bad. And it's very long, it's very involved, so I'm going to let Richard, whose life they have earned, he and his family. He's got a beautiful wife. I never had met her until today, and his children. And I'm going to let Richard, it happened to him, so let's let him tell the story.
Richard, you an Alabamian by birth? You raised over in Selma, wasn't you?
I was.
You've been on the show before, and you founded Health South in Birmingham, and your wife Leslie was an outstanding student at Troy. She was homecoming queen and everything else, wasn't she?
Well, she was in the court, but she won the Sydney All-Around.
That's right. Yeah. And both of your children are at Troy now.
Well, I have 2 kids there right now. One's a senior, and the other one, he's a sophomore. And he is a great young man. She's a wonderful, beautiful young lady. My son is, he's an ATO. He did the walk last year, 128.3 miles. Yeah, he's doing it again this year. So I'm real proud of him.
Well, I know Jack Hawkins is glad to have him there with us and everything. Go ahead with where Tommy left off.
Yeah.
Again, tell our viewers exactly the story on this thing now.
Yeah, well, Tommy's right. He gave me a call and he said, you need to come see me. And so I did.
This is like recently?
It's been over a year. It's been not that long ago. But anyways, I don't remember the exact date, but he said, you need to come see me. I've uncovered some things that is going to shock you. And I got there, I literally almost cried when we started talking. He started telling me what he knew. And then it's just by a freak accident that a gentleman came to see Tommy that he knew. I didn't know the guy knew Tommy. He went in to see Tommy, and he started telling Tommy that he had testified before the grand jury in my case, and that he had met with the prosecutors and the FBI, and he started telling Tommy all this information. Next thing you know, I come back and meet with Tommy. We start gathering information and find out that this was all exculpatory information. It was all Brady information that would have helped us in our trial, helped Siegelman and I.
But the prosecutors were hiding.
They hid it. They hid it. So today we had a press conference, and we dug and we kept digging, and we found there are many people. It's voluminous what they withheld. It's huge. And so now over the last year, we've uncovered, incident after incident, and we've got affidavits now, sworn affidavits. But so what happened was the judge, one of my attorneys, Art Leach, suspected they were withholding, information like that, and told the judge and said, you need to make them turn this Brady information over. And I have with me, the testimony of the trial where the judge told them specifically to turn all that information over. It was a Friday afternoon. As a matter of fact, he said, I want you to go to every agency, every investigator, FBI. He named them all. He said, I want you to get every note, all the 302s, that's an FBI report, to get all of the notes, everything, any information, any communication at all, turn it over. He said, come Monday, I want it all turned over to the defendants.
Who was the presiding judge?
It was Judge Fuller, Mark Fuller. Yeah. And that was one good thing he did, by the way. I don't know, he didn't do a lot, but he did that one good thing, and I got to hand it to him for that.
How long was the trial, Richard?
It's about, it was several months, yeah. So anyways, we, come Monday, the judge, first thing he did, he said, before we bring in the jury, and I want to ask these, ask them, the prosecutors there, ask the U.S. attorneys, did you bring this exculpatory information, the Brady information? And they said, we looked and we don't have any. Well, sitting in that audience right there with the FBI agents and the investigators, since then, they lied, straight out lied to the judge. And you don't lie to a federal judge, that's criminal. So what they did, they said, no, we don't have any. We'll just give them everything we got. Well, they only gave us 5 302s, and Nick Bailey, we have a statement from there's only one witness in the trial. That was Nick Bailey. He's the only person that testified against me. Nick Bailey, we have a statement from him that he met with those prosecutors. He named the prosecutors and
all
by name.
He was tied to Siegelman, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was like a chief of staff or something. But anyways, Nick Bailey had met with them 24 times, he said in his statement, where they discussed Siegelman and I. They only gave us 5 of those notes. They didn't give us the 19 they withheld, and he said he discussed Siegel and I every time. That's all Brady information. But not only that, there are many other people. So, and Nick Bailey has apologized to me and has come to me, has told me that he knew that his testimony was not accurate. That he has looked at the evidence, and he knows that there was no quid pro quo, there was no check, and none of the things that the prosecutors made a claim were true. They don't have a case. They're only one witness. So if we got a retrial on it, they wouldn't even have a case. How are you going to retry it without a witness? So
now, how long ago was the trial?
18 years ago.
It was that long ago?
19. It was in 2006.
God, that shows you when you get some age like me how long time
19, yeah. And so, but it took us this long. We always knew everything was wrong. I knew I didn't do anything wrong. I never gave Siegel a dime. And
no, you gave it to the
I didn't even support him.
Thing.
I didn't support him. So, so everybody knows that. So the whole thing was a sham, and they used me. They didn't want Siegelman to get reelected, and they used me against him. But anyways, the bottom line is we had a conference call today. And in that, a press conference today. And in that press conference, I said, here's the transcript of what the judge told me to do. And I picked up my file, which is full of sworn affidavits from people that said they met with them. So met with the prosecutors and the investigators by name. I have them by name. Who was in the meetings? And they said that the prosecutors and the FBI and the investigators took notes, and they didn't turn any of that over. Well, that's criminal. And not only that, federal law requires that this case be immediately turned over and the conviction thrown out. So now that Tommy has helped in a major way help pull all this together, today we asked the new U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi and the folks up in Washington D.C. Department of Justice to commence a full-fledged investigation of the corruption, the weaponization, and the political prosecution in this case. We've asked for that, and we also are asking for the pardon czar to take a look at this as well. The new pardon czar, she needs to take a look at it, because one of the things she wants to see is once people went through this, what do they contribute to their community? What are they doing? Well, I've worked like crazy contributing to my community. I'm an ordained minister. I've been preaching at churches all around. I've been going into the prisons. I've done 600 hours in the prisons of ministry work in prisons, helping inmates, and lots of other things, okay? And anyways, I think we're certainly a candidate for that. But on top of that, this needs to be investigated. They broke the law. They didn't provide the information. It's a clear, it's a clear violation of federal law.
Who was the prosecutor on this case?
Well, there was two of them. It was Franklin and Fega.
Were they assistant U.S. attorneys at the time?
Yes.
Yeah. Where are they now?
I'm not sure.
They're at the Securities Commission.
Here in Alabama? They work for the Securities Commission in Alabama?
Yeah.
Franklin and Fega do?
Yeah.
What about, where's Nick Bailey now?
Nick, I talked to Nick. I talked to Nick yesterday, and Nick again has apologized, says, I know you were a good Christian family man. This should have never happened to you. I knew you were innocent. I've always wanted to come and talk to you and apologize to you. This happened a few months ago when he and I talked, and we communicate. I told Nick yesterday, I said, I'm going to have the press conference tomorrow, and I'm going to give you a heads up so you'll be aware. He said, I really thank you. He said, I hope it goes well for us. And he's traveling. He works for a company that goes to these disasters. When they had the fire in California and the thing in North Carolina, he goes and helps out.
Let me add one thing in
ahead,
here,
Tommy,
Steve, I think is very, very important, is when I started looking into this, of course I knew Bob Riley was behind it, because
you said it from the beginning.
I said that from the beginning.
But you saw it developing at the beginning.
Yeah. But I couldn't figure out what in the world. But they had to have somebody.
They were using Scrushy to get Siegel.
Yeah, and they failed in Birmingham to get him. And I think a lot of this had to do with the people at his former company. But we're going to not get into that, all right? But whatever it is, the sheets are going to come back on the whole thing. But to me, what is so pathetic is this man was worth well over $500 million, and they stripped him of every single thing he had. And I'm going to let him tell you, when they laid down, he and Sigmund, they took his 2-year-old grandson out of his arms. I would not think that Russia, took his 2-year-old son out of his arms with his other son there that was, 4?
No, I had a daughter that was 4, son that
Yeah.
was 2, and I had a daughter that was 8, and I had a son that was 11 that was there. All 4 of them were there.
And they leg out them and drug them out and put them took them to Miami to the big
To
house.
Atlanta,
I mean,
the Pen.
what I
The
say?
Pen in
I meant
Atlanta. Put us in the
Atlanta.
worst.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen the Pen in Atlanta?
Oh,
That's the
it's
scariest
horrible.
place. I mean, just drive up and look at it. I mean, I could not believe that they were taking us in there, and they treated us like we were dirt. And I almost feel like that was something Fuller might have done, or prosecutors, they made a decision to tell them to treat us really hard, because they did.
Oh,
And
yeah.
when we went in there, they put us in solitary confinement in a place called Behind the Glass. That's where all the
When you
real...
say us, who else was in there with you?
Me and Siegelman. They
Siegelman.
put us, slammed us both
so
in
the
there.
case that Siegelman was convicted on was the same one you were?
Yeah. We were in the same case together. I mean, neither one of us was guilty on this thing.
So I've written that 5 different times, how they
horrible.
was done wrong.
They took us in there and threw us in there and put us in the worst place. The wonder we didn't get killed, because that first night we were there, they'd put somebody in there that apparently had raped somebody's daughter. And they killed that guy in that prison that night, right there where Siegelman and I were. He died that night. They broke his neck. I'm telling you, why would they take a governor and a guy who was a CEO of a Fortune 500 company and put him into a place like that? We've never done anything wrong to anybody. We wouldn't hurt anybody.
No.
But they put us in there with the worst criminals that you have ever seen. I mean, there were people that were bad folks, and I almost feel like that was something Fuller did. The judge ordered it or something. And they slammed us into a car that night.
They took you from the courthouse?
From
in
the
Montgomery?
courthouse. I was there
You and
with
Siegelman were convicted at the same time?
Yeah, let me tell you, my family, my children, my wife and I standing there. And I had
in the federal courthouse right over here?
Yeah, and like I said, my little 2-year-old boy, he was in diapers. They came in there and surrounded Siegelman and I. They put us in leg irons and chains, drug us out of there, and threw us in a cell there, and then put us in a car with marshals, and they drove us. You're not going to believe this. Tommy, I don't know if I told you this. They drove us to Atlanta, to the federal pen, and those 2 marshals had never been to the federal pen. We drove around Atlanta for an hour for them. Back then we didn't have GPS, didn't have phones on the GPS. They couldn't find the prison. We drove around for an hour looking for it.
You and Siegelman in the back seat?
Back seat, chained up like this, chained all up, legs and iron, chained to her gut. We couldn't even scratch your nose. And it was raining like crazy, and these 2 marshals just driving around Atlanta trying to find. They didn't even know where they were going.
What year was this, Richard?
That was in 2007, and
Good
so,
God.
yeah, so
18 years
yeah.
ago.
So then finally they found the prison, thank God, and drove up, and then they couldn't get in, and finally they got in, and boy, I tell you, they put us through it. It was just hate. It was just hate and mean and wrong, and then they shipped. We were there for 3 weeks, and they shipped him to somewhere. I don't even know where they shipped him out, and then they shipped me to Kansas City, to what they call the transfer center, and put me in another hole and kept me there for several weeks. I couldn't even talk to my family. I couldn't communicate.
You couldn't talk to your family?
No, you can't talk to your family. They treat you like dirt.
How long a term did they give
They put me in
Siegelman?
in what they call the
5
hole.
years. 5 years.
That was 5 years.
Siegelman served more than that, didn't he?
No, he ended up doing 5. He
Same
got
thing.
out. Yeah, we both did 5 years.
I've said that was the worst political prosecution I've ever seen in my lifetime.
Me too.
Was what they did to Don Siegelman and you.
You know.
I mean, that man, all he did was try to pass the lottery.
I know he was
The money you
for
contributed
children,
was-
for the schools.
For the school children. All the money you contributed was to a lottery campaign so kids could have a free education. in the
I never
state.
gave him any money. That's what makes it bad.
Oh my God!
I never gave him a dime. I didn't even contribute. The prosecutors
world
made
they
it up.
convict you?
They made it up.
That's terrible.
There's no check. There's no
shit.
money.
You didn't even contribute to the campaign.
I didn't even contribute to the campaign,
But
and not
Richard,
one
that's
nickel.
horrible.
I know, and the prosecutor stood in
You mean you
front
didn't
of.
even contribute to the campaign?
No.
To the,
No, my wife would, and I said, no, we're ministers and we're Christians. We're not going to contribute to it because it was gambling. So we didn't do it. We thought it was evil, and so no, we didn't contribute a thing. And then when the prosecutors got up and said he gave $500,000, I never gave the money. I never gave any money
will
to
you
it.
tell the judge that?
Yes.
The lawyer
Oh,
say
they
They
that?
didn't have
They
any
didn't
evidence.
care.
They've had a check from some other company out of Baltimore that had
You've
donated.
got to be
no,
kidding.
No.
So you
no.
didn't even give a campaign contribution to the lottery.
I never gave Don Siegelman a dime.
He supported Riley.
I supported Riley, Bob Riley. I did fundraisers for Riley, and then he did what he did. He should have been there supporting me. He should have never let that happen. I supported him, George Bush, and everybody else. What in the world happened? And Bob James.
Let me tell you something, Steve, I think
That's
is
just the crookedest
very
thing you've ever seen.
important.
That is.
One question they asked me after the press conference is why did Nick Bailey wait this long? I'm going to tell you why. I tracked Nick Bailey down through his lawyer. Troy King was representing him, okay? And I knew Troy. Of course, he's named for your hometown.
Right. He went to school, his parents did,
Yeah, yeah. And so I got Troy, and I said, I got Nick Bailey lying like a snake. And I said, this is horrible. And I said, if he'll come clean and tell the truth, everything will be all right. Other than that, I probably threatened to sue him, but it didn't make any difference. Troy said, well, Tommy, he was threatened by the prosecutors, Fagan and Franklin, that if he ever admitted he lied during this trial, that they would prosecute him for perjury. And I said, Troy, for God's sakes, they're going to prosecute a man for lying when they forced him to lie. Yeah. And so I thought for a minute, so I called Troy back about an hour later. I said, Troy, I just looked at the statute. The statute of limitations on perjury ran 6 months ago. And so it's run. He said, well, let me check. And he checked and called me back and said, yeah. So from that point on, he felt, I will say this, I don't even know Nick Bailey, but I think he felt so bad about putting two people, including the guy he worked for, Sigelman, in prison, that he was ready and willing, and he will come forward and tell the entire story.
yeah. How many years would go? And this year was 2007, so 18 years ago.
The trial was in 2006, and then he waited a while, and then he had the sentencing a little less than a year, but almost a year later, and that was when he put us in. We went into the trial ended in almost end of June, and he put us in prison in April or May. May.
Now, what about those prosecutors? Can they be prosecuted?
It's worse than that. It is when you lie to a judge and you hide evidence, it's subject to federal criminal violations. And I will say this, Faga and Franklin were taking orders from their boss, Laura Garrett Canary, who was taking her orders from Bob Riley and Carl Rove. And it goes on, and also Eric Holder. So it's both sides of it. And I asked myself this question. When Bush went in, how in the world, when Obama went in, how in the world did they keep Laura Garrett Canary for 3.5 years? That's never happened in the history.
I wondered the same thing.
Yeah, and I couldn't put it together. Well, Eric Kohler was also behind it. And as you probably know, going back to the Jill Simpson thing, Eric Kohler's Carl Rove's lawyer.
Did not know that.
And Carl Rove's law firm is Covington and Burke.
That's amazing.
I mean, this thing is a made-for-TV movie.
Well, that is when you bring the national perspective into it.
Oh, they were
Holder and Rove being involved.
And you understand why they didn't want Sigelman in there, because of the things that they had planned under the Riley administration.
Right.
And they had stuff planned, and it had relative to the gambling and everything else. I mean, this thing is deep, and what we did today, we didn't go into all of that. I mean, but all of that is there. And there will be a day that all of that's going to be uncovered. Although those people, they may try to run, and those roaches are going to try and get, through the cracks and into the dark. But I'm telling you, the light's coming, and things are starting to come out. But what we did today is we dealt totally focused on the exculpatory evidence that was withheld, because that alone should overturn the convictions against me.
But Richard, you've had 20 years of your life taken from you though.
Everything.
Look, they took 20 years of my life. That clouds it's not only on me, Steve, it's on my children.
Right.
All of my children, all my boys that carry the name Scrushy, my daughters, we all have suffered. They suffered. It's kept me from being able to make a living like I could. I built 2 Fortune 500 companies, 3 New York Stock Exchange companies, and I did that in a matter of only about 12 to 15 years, and they took 20 years of my life here. What could I have done had I been given the opportunity to continue building, continue growing? They came against me on Health South. They had nothing. I beat them on all 36 counts because I was innocent. I didn't do anything wrong there. And they spent 6 months, a trial there. We had, 50, 60 witnesses and all kinds of different people. They had nothing, and we beat them on that. So now they thought, well, we'll just go down to Montgomery, drag Scrushy in with this governor over here to keep him from getting in, and it was a Republican regime that actually went after him. We know that. But they were dirty Republicans. Now, I think there's some good, clean Democrats. I think there's some good, clean Republicans. But there's some dirty Democrats and some dirty Republicans. And now I've seen both sides of it.
Richard, you know something as you sit here, though. You had your life taken from you for 20 years, actually served
and
time.
And my family.
And your family, you served time in federal prison. But you know who else has been done wrong in this thing? It's Don Siegelman.
Oh, no, Don was done wrong, too.
He was, he's in the same boat you are.
Oh, no, he was.
Is he aware of what y'all doing? Have y'all
gosh, yeah. Oh, Don
he saw the press conference.
Matter of fact,
he was there.
No,
he was unable to be there, but he saw the video of it, and he and I talk every day almost.
Good.
I went over everything with him yesterday before we had the thing. He knew everything I was going to say, and he approved it. I told him I don't want any surprises with him. I notified Nick Bailey and told him I was having this. Look, this is full disclosure. We hadn't done anything wrong.
No.
Look, we don't have anything to hide. You can put me in front of anybody.
I've said that for years.
We are clean.
What they did to you in Siegelman was wrong.
Oh, it was totally wrong. And of course, Siegelman was a classmate of mine at Alabama. I always liked him. I was a Republican, so I didn't support him. But I will say this: one of the that's going to unravel is how they took everything Richard had, stripped him, and literally left him destitute and unable to get a job, and they're still interfering, but we can't get into that.
Yeah, we can't get into that, but
it's going to come out.
There's just a lot of wrongdoing that took place, and the whole thing with me leaving Health South, that was all handled improperly, and that was Alice Martin, and she demanded that I be out of the company, and the board didn't. They thought they were going to be indicted, and they did all that, and they should have never been. I should have stayed there. I ought to be there running the company today. It'd be probably 4 times the size it is right now if I was there, because they hadn't grown hardly any since I left. It's kind of amazing, but it was wrong. We got to make this wrong right. We have the documented, unrefuted evidence now to prove that we were done wrong.
Well, I appreciate y'all taking time to be with me today. Unfortunately, our time's up. I hope this gets this stuff revealed properly.
Well,
and I hope y'all
stay
get
tuned.
rectified.
There's a lot more coming.
Well, I thank y'all for doing this, and thank you viewers for watching. Y'all seen a revelation show today. Thank you for watching. Hope you tune in next week for Alabama Politics.
This has been Alabama Politics with Steve Flowers, a production of Troy University Television. Opinions expressed on this program are not necessarily those of Troy University, its administration, faculty, staff, or students.